Aloha, and welcome to Wind in Your Hair. Authentic talk, real breakthroughs in love and life, guaranteed no BS, and the life you want most, starting right now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we have a special guest today, and her name is Anna, and she is coming to us from Dallas, Texas, and she is a Hawaii girl. Were you born in Hawaii, Anna?
Born and raised.
All right. Well, let me tell you why I have her for us today, guys. Is she is on an amazing journey in multiple ways, and in a minute she'll see what I titled this podcast interview. Well, let's just go look at that. And it is Journeys, Patterns, and More. Why journeys? Well, all of us are on a journey. Anna is on a fantastic journey herself, and she'll tell you a little bit about that here in a second. And she really does understand patterns. Patterns are the key. If we do not understand our patterns in life, dating, relationships, we're never going to have the success that we want. And when I stumbled upon her on Instagram, I was very impressed with her as far as her knowledge base, number one, but also it really got tied into her journey and the journey that she's on that she will share with you. So Anna, tell us about yourself. Tell us about, maybe growing up in Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
why you left Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
and the journey that you're on. That would be
All
awesome.
right, I'll make it short and sweet.
All right.
Like I said, grew up in Hawaii, ended up becoming a single mother at 26, 25. And that was a huge turning point, or I would say like spiritual marker in my life, because the church had me get up on stage to repent of having a baby or getting pregnant, right? Because growing up in the Christian church, you just don't have sex outside of marriage. But that act of having me get up on stage and repent really did a number on my mindset. And it was subconscious. Like for 20 plus years, that single act of having me get up on stage made me feel cheap and bad. And so I didn't know anything about mindset back then, but that made me make really bad decisions, or caused me to make bad decisions, enter one toxic relationship after the next, where I attracted the narcissistic personality type. And, that's on me. Ended up getting married to someone that was not healed or healthy, and ultimately getting a divorce 13 years later, actually separating 13 years later, divorcing 16 years later, and ended up basically rescuing myself. At the end of my marriage, I had hired a life coach, and she changed my life. I wish I could go back and hire her when I was 20. She helped me be brave enough to walk through a divorce, because also in the Christian church, you're not supposed to get a divorce, but I don't think the church knows anything about mental health, such as narcissism or the dismissive avoidant attachment style, which is one of the most difficult attachment styles to have a relationship with. And then addiction, such as alcoholism. So, how did I get to the mainland? I had a job offer to become a private flight attendant and to be trained, which is huge. So at the time, I have 3 children. They're all born in Hawaii, homeschooled all of them, moved to the mainland to become a private flight attendant. And my goal was to bring my children over with me after I became stable and figure out where I wanted to live. So that's what brought me to the mainland. But then after doing that for a year, really, it's kind of wild. My journey led me to becoming a relationship coach.
How
So
long ago did you leave Hawaii?
it's been almost 2 years.
2 years. And
Yeah.
then, if you don't mind, because I again found your journey
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay. So first you went to, was it North Carolina or somewhere? Where was it?
Actually, first I went to San Diego,
Yeah.
but then I went to my safety training, and then I had the opportunity to jump on a jet right away, which is very rare in that industry. And
Yeah.
you have to know people deep in the industry. So I ended up moving to Pennsylvania for a few months, and then Georgia, then Florida, then Nashville, and now Texas. I was like,
And
wait, where am
each
I?
time you moved, was it job related, or you said, you know what, I got to find my home. I got to find my place. And you were searching? Like, what was the reasons for that?
Yes, it was a part of searching. So San Diego was more job related, Pennsylvania was job related, but I knew that my children were never going to want to move to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And it was last winter, and it was so cold, and my adult son, who was 21 at the time, and his girlfriend moved to Alpharetta, Georgia, and they said,
Yeah.
"Mom, come live with us," because it wasn't that far of a flight, and I
Yeah.
said, "Yes, hell yes. Of course, I just wanted to be with my kids, but I wanted to also get out of Hawaii because there's a very complacent, small-minded spirit there, whatever you wanna call it. I feel like for me, if you have big dreams, the North Shore is not the place to live. And so I moved to Georgia. We were there for a few months. We were all miserable because it was like, it's just not our vibe. So the owners of the jet that I flew on had a place in West Palm, and I was going there often for work. And so I talked to my son and his girlfriend. I said, "We got to go to West Palm. It kind of reminds me of Hawaii, the palm
Yeah.
trees, the warm breeze, the beach."
Yeah.
So I talked them into it and packed up all our stuff. We ended up in Deerfield Beach and lived there for a few months. They broke up, so the family scattered, and I thought, "Where am I gonna go next? Where can I go?" So, I packed up all my stuff in a U-Haul, and I drove to Nashville. I signed a lease online, didn't know anybody there, just drove there, moved into my place, and that was an amazing season for me. Like, I have a strong faith, so I'm gonna talk about God. I think about that season every day and how much I loved it and I miss it. Like, even in my home now, I'm, like, looking out the window and I wanna envision the view I had out of my 8th-story, really nice
Were you
apartment.
downtown?
I was a mile and a half away from downtown. I could see the city from my view, and I was overlooking a cemetery, which at first I didn't love the idea, but
Yeah.
then I looked at the cemetery and I'm like, "Those people are dead.
Yeah.
They're done." And it just always reminded me that I still have an amazing life ahead of me.
Yeah.
So, at the time, I was having a really hard time because I'd broken up with the love of my life. I didn't have my children anymore. Friends were plucked out of my life. I stopped drinking. I became celibate. I didn't go out and listen to live music. I wasn't even playing pickleball. It was like God just put me in this place of total solitude and ripped out all the distractions. That was one of the most important parts of my entire journey of my
Yeah.
entire life was 3 months in Nashville.
So let me tell you why I wanted you to get more elaborate on your journey, right? Because I've heard parts of it on Instagram
Mhm,
and also listened to a couple of your podcasts, okay, interviews before I said, yeah, I got to have this girl. And to me, it was fascinating because picture this audience, picture someone who was married, 3 kids. I know the North Shore of Hawaii and how small that is. Everybody knows everybody, right?
mhm,
And it is such a small place. And so then she leaves all that behind to
mhm,
find a future because I'm constantly encouraging men and women to. My sister had a quote. She said, "Sometimes in life, you take chances, and the most amazing things can happen." Right?
mhm,
And we
mhm,
get stuck in our comfort zone. Well, this girl in front of us today, she got out of her comfort zone for sure. And she went to multiple places searching. That's why I have the background on the Zoom today that I have, because that's Cambria, the central coast of California, where my heart and soul loves to be, right? And it's a journey type place. And this journey that she's been on has been incredible. So that's why I wanted you to go a little bit deeper into it, because I
mhm,
think if people really understand more what you've been through, which you just
mhm.
shared with us, I mean, and that's amazing. When did you decide on Dallas, and how did that become now your home?
Okay, let me back up a little bit
Yeah, back up as
and
much as you want, as
start
much as
okay,
you
I'll
want.
back up, which I think is really important for women to hear also because I have a heart for women. I wanna see women set themselves free and live life on their terms and be empowered, but I also have a heart for men. I just wanna help men become better so that we women have more options. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. For any of you who know the Enneagram, it's a personality test, which means I'm a
Describe
challenger.
that for those who don't know what that is.
So someone introduced me to the Enneagram years ago. I became certified in it so I could teach it to my clients because it changed my life overnight and my relationship with my children. When they took the test and I realized what their personality style was, I realized why we were butting heads. And so it's based on your inner motives. Like it's not based on what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside, your core inner weakness, strengths, desires, fears, longings, all of that stuff. There's numbers 1 through 9, and maybe you'll put it in the show notes, but it's the Enneagram. And it shows you your strengths and your weaknesses. And I realize my strength is leadership. It's helping people level up, become a better version of themselves. But my presentation, the way that I did it, needed refining. And also, we're prone to anger. When we're triggered, we don't get anxious like some people do. We don't feel guilt or shame. We get angry. And so I realized when I took the test and I was prone to anger, all of a sudden the lights went on for me and I didn't feel like a bad person anymore. I knew that God needed to refine me. And so that started that journey because we all have unhealthy versions, average versions, and healthy versions of us.
Yes.
So I started on that journey of becoming more healthy, and I saw how unhealthy I was being married to an alcoholic, somebody who wouldn't stop drinking, and the drinking ruined our marriage, somebody who was emotionally unavailable and had narcissistic personality traits. I'm not going to throw them into the bus. I'm not going to name any names, but I'm going to start from there. I left Hawaii knowing that God had a bigger calling on my life. And if I stayed in Hawaii, I call them nunchuck skills. I don't have any nunchuck skills. I don't have an, I'm not properly educated, graduated with a diploma in high school, homeschooling, and homeschooled my 3 children. And my ex did not want a divorce, although he didn't want to fight for the marriage. And so when I left, it was more of like I'm stepping out into the unknown. I had one friend in San Diego who was trying to help me get the kids out of Hawaii. And so that was my journey to starting just getting to San Diego. And then from San Diego, God opened the doors for me to meet these people to get into flying private. And then I ended up in Pennsylvania. So each state that I went to was really just so interesting. When you look back, you think in the moment, I say to God, why did I have to do that? Why did I have to waste time in Florida? What was I doing there? That was one of the hardest times of my life in Florida.
Yeah.
It was wild, but it was all a journey, and I felt like what he told me was, "You needed a little bit more humbling, Anna," which I see that because I can be a little bit prideful. I needed to be humbled, and I needed to learn a few more lessons that I don't think I could have learned another way. And so we were in Florida, my son and his girlfriend broke up. My son went north to Orlando, and so I said, "I'll go to Nashville so I can work on my music." But I didn't work on my music. I co-wrote once, and God
Tell
had
me
other plans.
real quick about your music. You
Okay.
sing, you play, what do you do?
I
Both?
play guitar, I write country music, and I am singing. Just started up vocal lessons here again, and I'm a part of a small band where my big goal this year is that I get my top 6 songs recorded because it has to do with my message. My message through my coaching, through my podcast, through my music, through my social media content is all the same message basically is about healing and freedom.
Awesome. Awesome.
But you asked me how did I end up in Plano? So, I'm in Nashville. No direct flights from Honolulu to Nashville, which I didn't think about when I moved there. My kids are 14 and 17, and they're like, "Mom, that's such a long journey." They had to do a layover. And my adult son came to visit me at Nashville, but not my 2 younger ones. And I'm like, "Okay, maybe this wasn't the best setup." And honestly, I wasn't feeling Nashville. Just
Yeah.
like the layout, I was like, "This is odd, like, I'm not loving the vibe here." And so, my 14-year-old son went to Plano with his dad in September to see a Cowboys game. His
Oh,
dad's from South Texas, although they all live in Hawaii still. And so he went to Plano, he said, "Mom, there's so much stuff to do here. I really like it here." He's never liked anywhere that I have flown him. So, my wheels started turning. I was in Hawaii at the time, actually. I flew back home. I packed up as much stuff in my Jeep. My guitars, my boots, my Stetsons. I left everything there, didn't know a soul in Texas, and just drove to Texas. It took me like 8 hours, and I stayed in hotels and eventually Airbnbs, and I found a realtor. A month and a half later, I signed a lease on a house and moved into a place. My kids didn't know what I was doing.
are there any of those videos where you were in the Airstream? Are they on your Instagram, any of them? Or those
I do have a few videos on my Instagram. I'm very, very sure, and that would have been around November because I spent Thanksgiving by myself on my little Airstream deck by the fire with the cows.
yeah. If
Yeah.
I encourage the audience to go back and look at those because again, that's what drew me in. Here she was in
Yeah.
this Airstream on this journey, not knowing where she was going to go next. That
Mhm.
Airstream, you quite can't afford that for months on end, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or was it a friend that loaned it to you?
No, it
Was
was on Airbnb.
Yeah, so those are not cheap. And
Mhm.
so it just was very interesting, and I could see
Well,
you're on this solo journey, right, with you and
yes.
God, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't let men go, dating
Mhm.
go, no sex,
Mm-mm.
I'm uh, my clients know I'm a Christian, and I very often will say, you know what? If you want to see if he really likes you, don't have sex with him. If you want to see how
Mhm.
the relationship is, don't have sex with him because that can
Mhm.
cloud things. So this was a choice for you to celibacy, right? So that you
Mhm.
don't get confused because it all fogs up everything, doesn't it? And
Absolutely.
so I saw all of that, and I'm like, God, she went all in. She didn't just like go only celibate. She didn't only go do this. She said, I'm all in. Okay. And
Right.
she's trusting God. And 80% of my clients are Christian, 20% are not. They believe in there's some higher power,
Mhm.
right? But whether that's the universe or what have you. But she trusted in that. She trusted in God. And some of you that don't believe in God, maybe you trust in the universe, but you have to believe there's something out there bigger than you that has you here for a purpose. And that is exactly what she believed. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, and a big part of my story is after I got divorced, I was single for 2 solid years in Hawaii, didn't even think about dating. Men were the furthest thing from my mind. There's not really anyone to date in Hawaii, but also I was really just homeschooling my children. I was building custom furniture from home. I had my own workshop and power tools, and so I was focused on working. I was also an Airbnb host. So I get to San Diego and all of a sudden somebody walks up to me and asks me out on a date. And I was so shocked. I remember being like, wait, you want to go on a date with me? My best friend was there. I looked at my best friend as if waiting for her approval. And she looked at me. She was like, "Go." And I was like, yes. And then that was the first date I had been on in probably 2.5 years.
Was that at the Seaside Market?
It was up near the beer garden, in Encinitas.
The guy who played on my basketball team in high
Yeah.
school, his brother owns the beer garden.
Oh, that's where I met the love of my life, actually.
Oh,
So the beer garden is a very special place to me. Through mutual friends, I ended up meeting my ex-boyfriend. We dated for a year and so there's good and bad. Like, yes, we were not celibate together, but there's a part of the story that God used him in my life, I believe. I don't know. Maybe people would disagree, but I didn't know men like him existed.
I want to say something that you just said because I'll forget knowing me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
She said, I didn't know men like that existed.
Mhm.
I've coached over 4,000 women in 30 years, 1,500 plus men, so mostly women. And the number one thing that women tell me all over the country, why is it so hard to find a great guy?
Mhm. Mhm.
There's a shortage of great guys. So that's
Mhm.
why also probably why she is focused on men because we need more great guys, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that comment you just said is what I have had women say to me, or when they lose hope or their bar is low, and they're like, I didn't realize men like that existed, right?
Mhm.
And maybe for multiple reasons, they never met a guy like that. Um, who knows what the reasons are, right? But there are good men out there if you're
Mhm.
patient and wait. And I just want to highlight that because that's something that is said a lot by women. I
Mhm.
didn't know men like that existed.
And
Continue that story. Yeah.
the interesting part is that 3 weeks before I met him, I was on Hinge, I was going on a bunch of dates, totally pointless, like, nothing came of it. I was just exhausted, and I said, "Okay, I'm done. God, I am done. No more." And then didn't date. 3 weeks later, through kind of a wild, interesting, serendipitous event, I ended up at the beer garden. My friend had called me and said, "Anna, you need to come right now to the beer garden." It was 10 o'clock at night. I was in bed in my pajamas with wet hair. And he talked me into it because I have FOMO, like a real case of FOMO. So I
Yeah.
quickly put my slippers on, my bomber jacket on, and drove up to beer garden and walked in and met this guy. And I was just like, you know how they say like high chemistry is not always the best sign? When that's what I tell people. Sometimes when there's high chemistry, you really want to be careful. There was high chemistry, but it turned out to be a good thing, and he changed my life forever. He believed in me like no one else did. He basically picked me up off the ground and dusted me off and gave me wings to fly, and he was just like, "Anna, whatever you wanna do." He strengthened me in ways that I can't even it's just I'm so grateful for that season in my life, but it came to an end. But we, of course, were so attracted to each other. I had the best sex ever, but so then it was really hard. My point is, it was really hard to be celibate.
And let it be known she's not had that much sex, okay, people? But it was the best sex so far. It was the
Oh,
best sex
so
so far.
far, so
Yeah.
far. It's hard to have good sex when there's no emotional
Yeah.
availability, right? And I realized that being married to my ex is that was a huge problem in our marriage was the sex. When I ended up dating my boyfriend, I was like opened up a whole new world. And yes, as a Christian, that was not, not in my best interest.
We're all imperfect, all
Yeah.
fall short.
Yeah. But so that was the point is it was really hard to go from that situation to no sex,
The
no
best
dating,
ever to nothing.
to nothing. But
No.
through God, all things are possible.
All right, I wanna ask you a question because I
Okay.
didn't understand this following your journey.
Okay.
She talked about this guy and that he's amazing. He's one of those
Mhm.
things that I tell all my clients they a must have is they gotta be a cheerleader for you.
Oh,
Okay. They got to be a team
mhm,
player. They got to be a cheerleader. They got to want the best for you. They want to
mhm,
allow you to be you. Okay. She had all those things. Okay.
mhm.
And then it ended. Why did it end? And can it come back around?
So it ended because we were in 2 different parts of the world. I had this great job opportunity, and I needed
Oh,
to
you took
provide
the
for
job. That's
myself.
why you left. Okay.
My
Gotcha.
goal my goal was to be able to provide for myself and my children. I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
rely on a man, right? I did that my whole marriage, and I regret that because we barely
Yeah.
made it every month, and I'm so sick and tired of being broke. So I said, "This was a great opportunity." You don't pass these opportunities
Yeah.
down. And I realize now, like, even though I loved him so much, I would not move anywhere just for love. I think maybe I'm too independent.
Yeah. Well, here's what I
Yeah.
say too on that one. I have
Yeah.
clients that will say, oh my God, I'll go anywhere with when you find that right
Mhm.
person. And I'm like, yeah, I go, I've lived in Delmar on the cliff in Encinitas,
Mhm.
Scottsdale. When you get used to living some decent places,
Mhm.
it's pretty hard to go to the middle of North Dakota.
Oh, that would
Or,
be dreadful.
but I have found that most, you got to think of everything, right? You got
Mhm.
to take all information in and you got to know who you are and where you
Mhm.
thrive. And when you get in a place like the North Shore, there was no vibe. There was no energy.
Mm-mm.
It was hard to thrive there. There weren't
Mhm.
alike minds. You just everywhere you went was kind of a slow pace, right? And then you hit a
Mhm.
place like Plano, Frisco, and the $8 billion mile, and you're like, snap, snap. Like people are moving and making things happen here, and that
Mhm.
probably energized you. Is that fair to
It
say?
did. And also, if I met another love of my life and he moved to the North Shore, 100% I would not go. There's nothing that could make me move back to the North Shore or Hawaii in general.
Yeah.
So you asked me how I ended up, I think I almost told you. So yeah, so then I moved to Plano, right? And then I said I got a place and I didn't want to tell my kids that I got it until I got it. And my son Maverick, who's 14, he's like, "Mom, you got a place in Plano. What are you doing there?" And I said, "Well, you said you liked it." So ta-da!
Your wish is my command.
He was like, "Oh my gosh, mom, you're crazy." So then they came over. He's come over a couple times since Christmas and they absolutely love it. It's the favorite place he's ever lived in. And so I succeeded. I'm so happy. And then my 22-year-old and his girlfriend just got married. They're moving up next month in my neighborhood
Wow. From where?
from Austin. My ex had spent a lot of time in Plano and I said there's no way I'm ever ever moving to Plano. I remember saying this 16 years ago, and now I'm living in Plano. I'm just like, "God, you have a funny sense of humor." So, it's not beautiful here, but I feel at peace here. I feel at home here, the most at home I felt in any place that I've lived. But for the longest time, my only home was, like, in my boyfriend. He was my home. And I had to get out of that. God redirected my attention. He's like, "I'm your home. We need to fix this. I'm your home, Anna." So God became my home. He got my full attention. He took all the distractions out of my life. And now he's doing a new work in my life and all of these wild detours and twists and turns and ups and downs and everything. And I see now that the time in Nashville was a time of purging and healing. And now here's a time of refreshment and building.
Here's something I think that dovetails on what you just said about
Mhm,
trusting in God,
mhm,
right? You had to let go of everything else, trusting in God. But share a little bit about the recent video you posted about going to church, okay? And you didn't feel welcome. Used to didn't feel welcome and didn't feel
mhm,
like you wanted to go back. And now you're going back because so many Christians, right,
mhm,
feel that same way. Then you have people who aren't Christians who went to a church and were judged or
mhm,
what have you, and they didn't feel like they were welcomed. So share a
mhm.
little bit about that because I think that's a common feeling, right? To not feel like you belong or you're judged or you're looked
Mhm.
down upon, but you got how you got over that.
So people keep asking me after that situation on stage, "Why do you go back to church when they did that to you?" And I said, "Well, it's easy for me because God and the church are actually 2 separate things, right? The church should be a reflection of Christ, but it's not usually,
Yep.
right?
Just a hospital.
The church is for the sinners, not for the people who have it all together and they all convene on Sundays. It's for the people that are broken. And so it's easy for me to separate God from the hypocrites at church. They're not the same thing. And I have believed in God my entire life. I've never hated him. There was one time I was angry at him in Florida where I was having a few words with him. But for the most part, I've always believed that God is a good God. But in my marriage, I had this vision of God just stepping into the shadows and disappearing because my ex-husband and I couldn't figure it out. We could not figure out how to stop fighting, how to have a good marriage, how to have a connection. It sucked. But God was always there the whole time. I just was a prideful person and couldn't see clearly. I didn't understand.
Did you know what you were in the Enneagram back then in Hawaii?
Yeah,
Now you look back at your ex, you just couldn't get it together, right? Would you
right.
just say, not a horrible person, although I'm sure there were some things you didn't like,
Mhm,
but just not a fit. It just
mhm.
wasn't a fit. Our personalities just collided. Was it that you think if you look back?
No, I wouldn't say that it was just the difference in personality. It was more the narcissistic personality traits, which
Yeah.
were chronic lying, which you can't have a relationship with someone where there's no trust.
Kind of tough. Kind of tough.
So the lying wouldn't stop. That really broke down our marriage. The secrecy, the jealousy, the lack of emotional availability. It was really like, no, he was not diagnosed with ADHD. I think that's what I have. With narcissistic personalities, but he definitely lived out a lot of the traits, and then his attachment style. But how you attach yourselves in relationships, you're either an avoidant or you're anxious or you're securely attached. And it major avoidant, like didn't want to talk about anything. And when we did try to communicate, it was just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I love all of what you've just talked about. That sets us up for now. She
Mhm,
is a life coach. And so I'd like
mhm,
to you to segue into what are the things that you feel are your superpower when you help a man or a woman? And you said mostly men now, but what's your superpower that you really get?
mhm. I love this, and I really have come to realize the answer to this question over the last few months, and again, it comes down to my personality, but also my relationship with God. He's a huge part of my coaching. I pray before every session. I ask God to speak to me because I can't heal the person. But like I told one of my recent clients who's never invited God into his life, I was like, "Hey, you've tried everything." He
Yeah.
literally has tried everything under the sun. I said, "Have you ever invited God into your situation?" He said, "No." And I'm like, "Okay, let's call in the big guns. Let's do this. Like, I'm your girl." Everybody has spiritual gifts, and my spiritual gift is the gift of the word of wisdom, or it's called the word of discernment. I realized that in my life that I can discern people's character, and then when I sit with a client over Zoom and they first start talking to me, a word comes to my mind. For example, I said to one guy, "The word shallow comes to my mind." And he just looked at me. He's like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "My best friend tells me that I'm shallow." And I don't even know this person. And so what we would do is we would dig into shallow. He stays in the shallow end because he's a dismissive avoidant, because he doesn't want to get deep, because he's afraid of getting hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so a word will come to me about the person's struggle or weakness or fear. The other thing about my superpower is I'm a very straightforward shooter. I don't sugarcoat anything. I will tell it like it is. And I love it because the last 2 people who booked a call with me, they're like, "I booked a call with you because I need to hear it straight from you. I need you to tell me what my blind spots are and my weaknesses." And I was like, "Okay, great. I'll do
And let
it."
me say why that works for her too. She's not only got the spiritual gift of discernment, she has the spiritual gift of edification as well. She's an edifier. And am I wrong?
No, I agree with you too. That's
Yeah.
true.
I've watched enough of your videos, but why that works, and she has that strong, like she'll just tell you the way it is. But
Mhm.
also, I believe this is why it works for you, because you're so vulnerable about your own life,
Mhm.
right?
So true.
And so when they see that you're human and you've
Mhm.
made mistakes and you've fallen
Mhm.
and you are tough on your own self, well, that
Mm.
allows for them to accept being a little tough with them, I would think.
Yeah, I like that, and I do know that about me is that I know that I've made a lot of mistakes. I know that I will always be working on stuff. I know that I still like Peter in the Bible, like, I am the worst of all.
Yeah.
I don't think very highly of myself aside from the fact that I'm smart because I have eternal salvation with Christ and I know where I put my trust, right? That's the reason I'm smart. And so I love that you said that though, because I do feel like my life is an open book and I want to share all of my struggles and trials and victories. It's not going to help if I don't share my victories and my successes.
Yes.
So you're right. I do feel vulnerable. I don't feel like I need to impress anybody. I'm just what you see is what you get with eights, also. All the pain that I've gone through, all the disappointments, being used, I'm not afraid to say, like, I allowed all that into my life, and it cost me a lot, but at the same time, I've learned how to get back up off my feet, and this was tell you earlier when I was talking about women, is to know that no matter what, if you feel like that marriage, you're just withering up and dying,
Dying on
and
the vine.
and your husband is saying, "You'll be destitute, you're gonna regret it, you'll be rebelling against God, it'll be the worst decision you ever made, you're destroying this family." I've heard it
Yeah.
all. I cannot even imagine what my life would be like. Actually, I can't imagine, but I wouldn't wanna imagine it if I had believed him and didn't pull up my big girl pants and just say, "I know that I was made for more. I know I deserve more."
Yeah.
And those are true narcissists when they make you feel like shit, right? And they say, you have no good idea, never champion you,
Yeah.
never talk to you about your goals or your dreams or anything like that. You will wither up and die.
Yeah. There's certain things that I have had women accept from a man. I mean, you just can't believe it. Like things he's said 10 to 20 things where she should have left after the first one,
Mhm,
right? And you probably were there for a minute. You just can't accept it. You got to realize that no good man would do that, would say these
mhm,
things. And
mm,
this one life you have to live, it's just unacceptable. And you finally got to that point and
mhm,
said, I'm not accepting this anymore.
mm-mm. And then, of
Yeah.
course, you have the church. The church will tell you, "You're wrong for divorcing. You can only divorce on the grounds of affair, which again, when you're with somebody who's a narcissist, a covert or an overt narcissist, you're dealing with all sorts of crap. And somebody who's also a dismissive avoidant, those people don't generally heal or
Yep.
change. And
Yep.
that's because they don't see the need to change. It's you that needs to go to the recovery programs, not them. They're fine. And so,
I was with a dismissive avoidant, and when I saw every expert on social media saying, if you're with a dismissive avoidant, you're married to them,
mhm,
well, good luck. Try to
yeah,
work through it. But they said, if you're not married, run,
right.
run,
Run.
because they don't change. There's some that do,
Right.
but in general,
So back to my video though. So after that incident with the church, I still didn't lose my faith in Christ. But yes, the church was pretty lame in my opinion. I stopped going to church when I was in Florida because I went and I saw this mom standing with her teenage son and it just broke me. I just started crying and I left the church immediately and I was like, I can't do this anymore because like I said in the video, like that's supposed to be me with my kids going to church. And it's not because my ex moved in when I left because I had the kids full time. And so he's with them and he doesn't want me to ever have my way. So even if it's in the best interest for the children to be with me, he's going to make it so it doesn't happen. And so actually, I just literally hired an attorney and now I'm working to get more time with my kids. And that's another example of what narcissists do. They like to be in control. Nothing can be on your terms. It has to be on their terms. And these are red flags that people need to look out for. I just did a post about red and yellow flags yesterday and how most people, they don't miss red flags. They see them, but they justify them because you think you're missing out or you don't want to be alone. And that was my issue when I got married. I was a single mom and I saw the red flags. And I was like, well, I need to do it anyway because I don't deserve any better.
let's come back to what do you feel your superpower is in understanding men or women in
Mhm.
relationships that you're really able to help them with?
Well, like you said earlier, patterns. I learned this through actually my ex boyfriend about paying attention to patterns. And so that really opened my eyes to helping men discern what is the root issue here. You think it's this, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's this. Usually it'll come down to maybe the root of forgiveness. And they're just like, whoa, I never even thought of that before. Let's work on forgiving your ex wife, even though you haven't talked to her for 20 years. You're bitter and resentful. When I do help men, I said, okay, you want to date a tall, hot chick? Is that
Yeah.
what you want? Okay, well, first, we're going to put that on the back burner because I'm not going to send you out to any woman when
Yeah.
you're doing what you're doing. We're going to deal with all this crap over here. You know,
Yeah.
the mindset, the patterns,
Would you
all
say
that
that
stuff.
that one client you mentioned who was in the shallow water, that
Yeah.
was a pattern for him, right? Miss
Right.
always staying in the shallow water, not
Mhm.
venturing out. Yeah.
And he had no idea. And to me, I literally listened to him talk for 5 minutes. Our call was an hour.
Yeah.
But within 5 minutes, a word came to my mind, and even just hearing him talk to me, he's performing right now. It's what he does, he performs. And I caught all these habits and these patterns that he did over the next few weeks, and it was hard for him, but he stuck it through.
And tell them about your immersion program. You can get a lot done in a couple days.
Right. So
Yeah.
I do an 8-week online program where we meet once a week via Zoom for an hour, which is super helpful.
That's one on one.
One-on-one, yeah, and so I take you through my framework, but then the fast-tracked version of that is my 2-day immersion where we meet in person. The client flies me to wherever they want me to meet them, and of course, they put me up in my own hotel room.
Yeah.
Or they'll fly to my city and they'll put themselves up in their own hotel room, and then I have this program. We meet in the morning, deep dive a couple hours, then we break away, they work on some homework, we meet back at night, and then I get to see them interact with other women or interact with me, and then I'll say, "Okay, this is your homework. You're not allowed to talk about yourself anymore, and you can't tell any more stories. Gouge my eyeballs out with spoons, please. That was horrendous." And then by the end of the immersion, I remember this, he was so much more pleasant to be around. He wasn't talking about himself. He didn't tell these stories. I was just like, "Oh, good Lord, thank you." And so that's why the immersions are so good because I see you. better than I could ever see you online. And I really help you with your blind spots and help you become more magnetic so that women like me want to be around you, even with how they dress, with their communication, opening the door, stuff like that.
She's trying to help them to learn how to get a mate for life.
Right, and just work on their skills, like their communication skills, their mannerisms, their energy. A lot of men are very,
Eye
lack
contact.
confidence. Yeah, eye
Sim
contact is huge.
sim
And then I do a version of that called the hybrid. So it is 8 weeks of Zoom and then 3 days of immersion. So I just did a hybrid in Cabo. And because I love to get wind in my hair, which means I love to have fun and I'm very active, I made sure that there was time for us to golf and to play pickleball and to ride horses. Somebody messaged me. They're like, "Are you sure you did any work?" Because I posted a recap video.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes. While we're riding horses, we're talking. While we're eating, we're talking swim
Talks.
styles." You
Ride and
know?
talks, walk and talks.
Yeah, while we're golfing in the golf cart and stuff, we're talking about trauma and blind spots and just all sorts of stuff. We're working on and off the whole time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. If someone said to you, why, what are the 2 or 3 things that you could tell someone that would help them to find their person?
I love this because I didn't know this, and a lot of people don't know this, but you need to become the right person before you attract the right person. You
Amen.
need to heal. So when I say I'm a relationship coach, I do help you with your romantic relationships, but what people don't really know is that I start with you.
Yes.
So I help you heal the relationship you have with yourself. And
Yeah.
that means making sure the 7 pillars I teach on something that I created called the 7 pillars, which is there's 7 pillars of our life: physical, professional, financial, sexual, spiritual, relational, and emotional. So we go through the 7 pillars and ask yourself, how are you doing in these 7 pillars? Because if one of them is faltering or weak, imagine the structure of a house. Your house is not going to be strong.
Yeah.
The thing that I help them with is first working on making sure that you have no limiting beliefs, no blind spots as much as possible. You're working on your patterns, your triggers. You have a healthy mindset and you are just as healthy as you can be so that you can attract somebody that you're aligned with because a lot of people end up in misaligned relationships. And so I would say the first thing that I do is I help people align themselves with their values and their goals and get healthy. And then the second thing that I tell people is also break up a lot sooner. Go out and date, but really pay attention to the red flags. And if you feel like something's off in your gut, do not settle. Don't explain it away. Don't downgrade it to a yellow flag. Walk away.
Hashtag don't settle.
Because if you are wasting time with this bench warmers, I call people bench warmers who
Yeah.
are not into personal growth, basically, and then the first round draft picks, which have worked on themselves and they want to become the healthiest version of themselves. If you entertain this bench warmer, the first round draft pick is going to pass you by.
Yeah.
And you're over here waiting, investing all this time, giving someone access to your life when they don't even know if they're ready for a relationship just because what? You don't want to be alone?
Yeah.
So that's the second thing I tell people is do know what your red flags are and your non-negotiables, and then just break up a lot sooner. If you start dating, quickly end it. And then another thing I tell people is just don't be desperate. People can sense neediness a mile away, like horses sense fear. So I just let go and I met the love of my life. I was like, just let it go. And the other thing is, like, I firmly believe God has someone for you. But if you don't have them yet, it's because you're not ready or they're not ready.
Now she just called him the love of her life. Is that the love of her life so far, or do you think that could rekindle?
It's just I really have just put it in God's hands and I'm like, "God, you know me, you know what I need and what I want, and if he's not the one for me, then fine." But it was a great season while it lasted. I learned a lot. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for him.
How long ago did you part?
It'll be almost a year next month.
Okay. In this past 12 months, you've grown a lot, right? You've
Mhm,
had a lot of
mhm.
alone time with God. He's spoken to you. When you look back at that relationship, it was really, really good. But now do you see some things where you go, yeah, it was good and it was close, but no cigar maybe because here's why. Has that
Yes.
happened?
Yes, that has happened. He checks in on me once in a while because he's knows I'm kinda wild and crazy, and he's just like, "Is Anna okay? Is she in a ditch?" You know, dead. Just
Yeah,
kidding. No, just because I'm always on some wild adventure. So he'll check in on me once in a while, but I realize he is an amazing human being. At the same time, because I've grown so much, I wonder if I would have settled for that now. But, that's not the case. And I am so focused right now on scaling my business so that I can help more people and getting my majors with me. Like, a relationship is not top priority for me because I just know, like, God has a prophetic marriage for me. He has a partner for me. Like, this next marriage is gonna be so different than my first marriage was about what most people do. They're kind of either maybe in survival mode, they want provision, they want security, stability, they don't wanna be alone, and they settle. That was not about a partnership at all. I was a single mom, and I was kind of in survival mode.
yeah,
I did this post recently about how some women want to find a man who has an empire, and some women want to build an empire with him. And that's me. I am building an empire right now, and I want a man like my ex-boyfriend who supported me, championed me, believed in me, and pushed me on, and never ever talked down to me, never discouraged me. He always had these pep talks with me, and these are the 2 things. Women, if you can get this in a man, you're gonna be so happy. Every conversation we had was just, like, encouragement and building me up. And then the other thing is how he would plan out our itineraries and our days and our schedules and always include fun and time for work and working out, and that spoke to my heart. That was filled my love tank.
yeah.
It's simple things like that. Speaking to the men, that is huge, especially for people with my personality style, is making sure you schedule in fun
Yeah.
and sex, if you're supposed to be having sex.
Well, the reason I brought that question up, now that a year has gone by, here's
Mhm,
why. I
mhm,
have 2 clients right now, 2 women that it's not going good, right? They're gonna stay in. So I'm encouraging both of them to take 6 months. If it's meant to be, it will be. If it's not meant to be, there's nothing you can do to make it happen. And what you did is you got away for a year. But also
mhm,
what happens when they take that break like you did
mhm,
is you have time to really assess because we get caught.
mhm,
I'm not saying he's not a great guy, he is. But when we're in it, we can't even see anything negative, right? Especially
mhm,
when we're having great sex, people. Okay. That clouds your vision like no tomorrow. So you
mhm,
get away from it and you get on your own, like you've done. And
mhm.
now you're able to see very clearly. And you look back, and many times you go, yeah, they were a great person, but I don't think they're my person, you
And are
know?
you saying that your clients are dating people right now, but the relationship is kind of rocky?
Oh, like a
Yeah,
like a roller coaster, right?
yeah,
But they're codependent. They can't let
right,
go. Maybe they're afraid he's going to find someone. If he does, great. It wasn't meant to be,
right,
right? But they can't break away. And I'm like, just give it 6 months. If you can get six
right.
months away, and you got a year away. And so I was curious as to where you were now,
Mhm.
and the way you look back at it.
I think that's amazing advice, and I think anyone who is in a relationship of roller coasters and ask, what is your nervous system like? Are you on edge? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel like they're just going to get up and leave? Do you feel like you're not enough? Get out of that relationship. That's not what a good relationship is supposed to be like. And like you said, if you step away, especially if you're in a season of solitude like I was, you
Yeah,
have no one to lean on but God. You can't rely on your ex-boyfriend anymore, which makes you stronger. It
yeah,
actually it feels counterintuitive to let something go in order to be stronger. That was the one of the most difficult seasons of my life in Nashville, but it was the best, and I'm so thankful that I was strong enough to let go and to trust God. I feel like a totally different person.
that is awesome.
You asked earlier, what are the biggest struggles you see today
Yeah,
between couples? When people confuse chemistry with compatibility, that's what I did with my ex-husband. There
yeah,
was chemistry and I thought we were compatible,
yeah.
but we weren't.
My number one thing I've said all these
Mhm,
years is. Good sex will keep you in a bad relationship, and sometimes mediocre sex will keep you in a bad relationship. So
Mhm.
if you can put off the sex thing, as long as you can, you're going to see if you really, really connect
Mhm.
and think about it, right? And so many relationships, you're right. They had what you had. They had that attraction, but it wasn't healthy and couldn't communicate on a healthy level. Now, tell people if they want to get in touch with you, do they just go to the website and where it says book your session,
Mhm.
phone number, email? How do you do it?
Yeah, so you can go to the website and book a session with me. If you end up working with me, then that session will be credited towards the program. But also my social media, the link will take in my bio will take you to my link tree, which has a place there to book a session. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
And I highly
Um,
encourage everyone to follow you on Instagram. You're
Mhm.
really good at being very consistent, very consistent.
Thank you. Well, I love creating content. Like content comes to me all day long. And posting my content is my ministry. So it's not something I dread doing, but it's something that's fun for me to do. And I try to post 3 to 4 times a day reels because I want to get as much content out there as possible because I want to be for them what I never had for me.
Well, and you do a good mix of instruction with just kind of showing your life. You come across very vulnerable and you're very open about your own life, which allows for other people to feel like they
Mhm,
can talk to you. And
mhm,
and then you do have that right then to be a little tough on them because
mhm.
you can say, I've been where you're at. It's just awesome. Well, I
Okay.
thank you so much for coming on today. You were a delight in every possible way. And I encourage everybody to reach out if they would
Mhm,
like to know more. I encourage everybody to follow her because she's got a lot of good information. She has not went on this journey in vain. God has turned her pains into her purposes. God's got you on a journey, and it's
mhm.
awesome to see.
Thank you, Gary.
And again, if anybody has any questions, reach out to her because she's good and she cares. The thing you got to
Mhm,
have with a good coach or a good mentor is you got to have someone knowledgeable, obviously, but someone who is sincere and cares and doesn't look at you like you're just money to them. They want
mhm,
to see you change. And she is
mhm.
all of those things. So that's what I see.
I am. Thank you. I don't want to waste your time. I want to get you from point A to point B as quickly as possible.
Amen. Life is short and the best is yet to come for you. All right. Have a blessed day and we'll
All
talk soon.
right.
All
Okay.
right. Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.